Sanjana, founding editor of groundviews.org. So I set up Sri Lanka's first citizen journalism website, groundviews.org, in 2006. And what I do with the site is to bear witness to narrative, stories, issues, people that mainstream media will not or cannot report. We are regarded now as one of the country's best sites for journalism of record, and to not just read but also engage with issues, stories that are critical to Sri Lanka's post-war democratic future. Well, a couple of things actually. The most exciting part of the platform is not so much what we publish and produce ourselves, but what the conversations that we curate around the content on the site. And we are currently curating a number of very interesting conversations on video produced by a channel in England called Channel 4. The video is called Sri Lanka's Killing Fields, and it's about very serious stories of allegations of war crimes conducted during the final few weeks of the war. Just the quality of the content that we've got, it's been amazing. We have now about 600 different authors, very few of them journalists, coming and giving us content both of a textual nature, but also in terms of audio and video as well. We've really, my background is English literature, so I've really kind of tried to push the boundaries of what journalism is also about in our country, both during and after war. So we've done really interesting stuff, inspired by, for example, The Onion. We did a series called Banyan News Reporters, which really pushed the boundaries of what could be said. It was a satirical piece, and it brought up some fundamental issues during and after the war related to IDPs, refugees, democracy, but in a satirical manner. And there was one instance where a mainstream newspaper picked up a BNR report and published it as fact, and you can imagine what responses that got. We really do other stuff as well. One of the most recent ones that I'm most proud of is a series of high definition videos on Sri Lanka and communities that you might not otherwise have seen. It's called Moving Images. It's at movingimages.asia, and it's won critical acclaim across the board, even from government, for showcasing communities and the issues that they face in a compelling manner. It's done by 3 producers using HD, and that's something we are very, very proud of. I was telling, what hasn't worked is I haven't seen anything like Groundviews blossom. I would love for it to have inspired other people to do much the same thing. To make sure that Groundviews continues and perhaps expands, I think that the systemic problems that gave rise to war and violent conflict in the country are still very much prevalent, even though our quality of life has improved noticeably after the end of the war in 2009. There are very deep, distressing, disturbing questions, vital questions to our democracy over how the war ended. And these are also concerns and questions that I think the platform will grapple with, however inconvenient they might be to the incumbent government. This is something that we are very deeply committed to, because we think it is the bedrock of democracy to have these discussions. I think information fuels discussion and debate. I think without information, what often happens is that myth and fiction takes over. Fiction is great as a genre that you can buy off a bookshelf. It becomes very dangerous when it becomes the operating principle for governments and governments to base policies on. And for people who then don't have the knowledge or the capacity to question them. The lack of information, I think, is the bedrock for violent conflict, to be very honest with you. And I think that the flip side of that is also needs to be questioned, in that just providing people with information also doesn't necessarily inspire action. But information is, in the availability, the usability of information is what compels citizens to be citizens and to hold their governments accountable. And this is why I think, in a sense, Groundviews also is regarded as one of the sources of information that gives and empowers citizens to ask the questions that are critical, that need to be asked in a democracy. None of us have any kind of sole ownership of the truth, but information in the public domain, accessible and usable, is what helps us ask the questions, and perhaps in time get the answers that we desire.